This is Governor Bob Ehrlich. Good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
Hey, welcome. It's Friday to Dr. Possum Political Architect Shows. We got one new doctor and another returning doctor. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rich from the reddest county in Maryland, Carroll County.
That's good, yeah.
The
I
land
guess you
of
could call me
Johnny
an
Network.
intern at this point.
What's that?
You could call me an intern at this point.
You're an intern?
Or a resident. You take your pick.
Resident.
Intern or
You're a
resident.
resident, yes. And then we have the soon-to-be Garrett Zahner Esquire joining us all the way from lovely Towson, Maryland, or White Marsh, or whatever the area. Rosedale. The mayor, also the honorary mayor of Rosedale, is with us, right?
Yeah.
You know, now that Mayor Krull is no longer there, we need someone else to. And we have author extraordinaire David Shepard. How was everyone's week this week? It's I think the biggest thing that happened is on a Friday night, we got a special prosecutor who actually should have his own special prosecutor. That is this big story. But so whatever we want to kick off the topics with, I could go on my rant about how I'm very irritated with bikers taking an entire car lane and then not wearing helmets. But I even got video of this, but I'm sure people don't want to hear that. Our fans, we got really great fans. Oh, we even have somebody that sent a message. Oh, okay, that's you, Gary. Hello. So, anyways, yes, who'd like to lead off? I can, Russia. We're at 535 days of Russia's attempt at invading Ukraine. Garrett, you're a student of history. Do you think Vladimir Putin kind of feels like he's got a McClellan running this war? Remember McClellan told Abe Lincoln the Civil War will be done in a couple of hours, And
Yes,
as I like to say, I like to, there's an episode of Deep Space Nine where the founders, when the Federation retook Deep Space Nine, and the founder goes, I guess this war is going to take a little longer than we thought. I think Putin says that to himself every day, every time he wakes up.
I definitely think that he did not expect the war to last this long. But especially, I don't think he expected the amount of Western resistance that there would be as well. He didn't expect that the West, NATO, the European Union, and pretty much the rest of the world would condemn his actions or even lift a finger or, not even lift a finger, move heaven and earth to get weapons, supplies, humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So I definitely do think that there is bound to be a shakeup of Russian high command imminently. I think Defense Minister Shoigu is definitely going to be losing his job within the coming months, especially after the Wagner paramilitary.
How is the head of the Wagner? Is he still with us, or has he been
I
found?
believe he's still alive. He's in Belarus.
Okay. Hope he doesn't endure the same fate as that spy who was poisoned in England.
Yeah. Well, I think what's actually going to happen is that we're about to open up a second proxy war against Russia. If you guys have been following in Niger, in Africa, the coup that happened in their country, Wagner came in right after the coup happened and basically signed a contract with the new junta of Niger in order to set up and defend their new illegal government. And so if there's an invasion from ECOWAS, which is the economic and it's basically the European Union of West Africa, if that union invades Niger to reinstate the government, Wagner Group is going to defend them from any attack.
Oh, really? Okay. I think the Wagner Group is becoming a little stretching a little thin. Ukraine, now Niger,
They have a lot of supplies and a lot of men.
Remember, Nigeria also was the one that supplied Saddam Hussein with those uranium yellow cakes to build his nuclear programs in Iraq. So, those were WMDs, and we found them in Iraq. And, take that, all you freaking lefties who said President Bush lied, At least our ambassador was still alive. It's not like when Barack Obama lied and our ambassador died,
Well, I mean, Wagner has also been they've also been operating in Mali and Burkina Faso as well. They've been supporting the governments in those. I believe they've been supporting the governments in those African states, and they've been supporting governments in other African states. So they have a large presence in Africa already. But what were you going to say, David?
Oh, I just said and just one little comment, and brutal as well in terms of the killing of the ambassadors.
Yeah,
they were brutal.
I can weigh in on the topic. Before we came
Okay.
on air, I checked with my Ukrainian expert, who also happens to be my wife. Both her parents are from Western Ukraine. And she tells me that the people in the remote regions, let's call it Siberia, were being interviewed by a reporter. And these people were talking about, yes, we must go and fight for the motherland. These people have no idea what's going on in Ukraine. They think their sons are going off to die for a righteous reason. So my wife was saying it has to be a remake of Radio Free Russia in order for the word to get out to these folks in the remote regions as to why their sons are going off to die.
And Vladimir Putin is running out of prisoners in his gulags to let them go, hey, I'll free you if you go fight in Ukraine. Well, you're not coming back because you're not really trained. So, it's kind of I'm saving the taxpayers of Russia the process of killing you and feeding you. So,
yep.
But
Voice of America is one of the best taxpayer-funded organizations in the entire country, and I stand by that.
No, Garrett,
I'm serious.
The best taxpayer-funded organization in the entire country is the National Aeronautical Space Agency, NASA.
I said Voice of America was one of the best. One of the best.
The best is NASA.
Well, when we actually do land on the moon, I will join you in that. So,
Where did we get Teflon?
Land on Mars. Sorry,
Corning. Corning. Dow Corning. The Corning ware. With the little wheat patterns, which is now worth a lot of money, evidently on eBay. That all is a spin-off of the space program, and don't forget the biggest contribution of the space program to everyday Americans, Tang.
Oh yeah, I love Tang.
It's better than hand squeezed orange juice.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. No.
I do like Tang. Tang was, they actually had a grape Tang for a while, but I guess it didn't sell as well as the orange Tang. But it's funny about orange juice. When you go to Florida, the Welcome Center, they give you orange juice, free orange juice there. And you think it's going to be fresh squeezed, because they have all these prop oranges around. But you know what they're doing? I saw someone. They open up cans, Minute Maid orange juice and just put it in there. But I think also here's the question, Garrett. We're America. We are the arsenal of democracy. We support democracies all over the world. We supported the Angolan resistance against the Cuban-backed communists. We backed the Nicaraguans without sending a single soldier, putting boots on the ground. We brought down the communist Angola in Nicaragua. We propped up the El Salvadorian government when they were fighting the communists. We supported, we
restored British parliamentary democracy to Grenada.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Absolutely. And, I know people kind of scoff about that, but it was like, we did that. We restored.
It is. I was actually reading about this, and the support of American intervention among the population of Grenada was around like 70 to 80%. and it is still they are very. It is their national holiday is it's called Thanksgiving Day, and that day celebrates the United States invasion of Grenada.
Liberation. We're not invaders.
Yes,
We're not
sorry,
invaders.
liberation of Grenada.
Because if we were invading, like Iraq, if we were invading, we would have just kept the
The oil
we'd have
field.
kept
The oil, yeah, the oil.
Here's a question, Garrett, and David and Jim, is we had people complain about President Bush said the Iraqis were going to pay us back for the war with oil revenues. Okay, and oil revenues did come online, and How is that any different than when President Trump said Mexico is going to pay for that border wall? Just saying.
Do you want to weigh on this, Rich?
Well, you're trying to get me to speak. My thought went off on the democracy, preserving democracies. So I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent, and it has to do with Mark.
It's not like we don't do that on this show enough.
Yeah, Mark. I think you're acquainted with Mark Morano.
I used to work with Mark Morano at NET. Actually, Dave and I both worked with him there.
And he talked about in March of 2020, everything changed in the United States as it relates to democracy, because we have governors across the United States telling people they can't go to church. You have to wear masks, but you can go to Walmart. And now you get all these executive orders, and that's going to slide into what Biden said about how he's done more for the climate issue than anyone else in the world. So I thought I would throw that in, and it was all about the fight for democracy around the world. But it seems that, according to Mark Morano, what they're trying to do is to deal away with capitalism and the American way. And that's what it's all about. I mean, don't tell me that carbon dioxide is bad for the world when really what you're trying to do is gain control of our behavior. I mean, don't feed me these lies about carbon dioxide.
Hey, David, in third grade science class, what did you learn about CO2? What do plants give off and take in? What did you learn?
Yeah, it's life creation. But also, when I was in about that time, there was the theory of we're going to enter a new ice age. Remember, that was the
That's true too. Yes.
But you see,
that's true.
But that's much scarier than the warming, because if it gets a little warmer, it's easier to adjust to that. If you start freezing, you're going to look at mass starvation, because it's going to be harder to grow things.
Yeah.
So the global warming crowd, I think they would have had more success if they'd gone with the narrative, oh, no, we're all going to freeze to death.
I mean, I'm sorry. When I was north of 350 pounds, I loved the cold winters because the cold didn't bother me. Now that I'm down to like 172, let me tell you, that cold goes right into my bones. I do not like the cold. I am for global warming. I am for 60-degree winter days in Washington, frankly. I am fine with that. I am fine with us being 55 to 65 all winter long, frankly.
Yeah, it just seems if people are going to complain about temperature rising, well, what is the ideal temperature? And I don't think they could ever say. I don't know what it is, the ideal. What should it be? I mean, the climate's always been changing. I don't know what it's supposed to stay at. I don't know. It's kind of like it's akin to when people say the rich don't pay their fair share. When you ask them what should they pay, what percentage, they back off. They don't give you a specific answer. I always thought it was the same thing with.
I've had a liberal tell me they should pay everything. Yeah. They don't need any. They say everything. Every penny they make after they make $100,000 because they don't need it. That's all extra money. They don't need that.
That's true.
And my response
they don't need an assault rifle, and they don't need more than $100,000 either.
Yeah,
and they don't need more than one kid, right? These are
right.
These are the same ZPC. I mean, Rich, you remember the ZPGers, the zero population growth people? Yeah. They were around the 70s and 80s, and they're saying, "Oh, there's too many people in the world."
We're talking about Paul Ehrlich, right? Yeah, I read Paul Ehrlich's book, Population Bomb, when it came out. I thought, "Oh, this guy's really bright. He's really smart." But what they're doing is trying to control us. And the next thing we're going to do is find out that we can't eat meat. Well, Dwight, that might not mean much to you, but there's a lot of us that enjoy eating our meat.
My position on eating meat is, though, unless you're a Hindu Vaishnav who doesn't eat meat, you should eat as much red meat as you want, frankly. You should be allowed to eat as much. You should, kind of like as the Irish have a saying, "Eat, drink, and be merry."
Yeah.
Or the Klingons have a similar saying as well. Eat, drink for the glory
It's a
of the
good day to
Empire.
die. Oh no, that was something else.
So I might be the one odd one out on this call, because I will say I do believe in climate change, and I do think that it is a problem. Do I think that it is the crazy wacko problem that many people, like, for example, Al Gore saying that the entire world was going to be underwater in 2010 or something like that? No, not at all. I do think that it is a serious problem that does need to be addressed. But many of the Green New Deal and many of the ideas that the left is putting forward in order to deal with the issue, it's asinine. It is the medicine would be worse than actually fixing the problem.
And how the left, they tell us what to do. There's only one lefty I know that walks the walk and talks the talk, and that's Ed Begley Jr.
Oh God, I thought you were about to say Bobby Kennedy Jr. I got worried for a minute.
No, Ed Begley Jr. He used to be on a show called St. Elsewhere. It was about a kid. It was about a kid who was dreaming about in a little snow globe, and that's how the show ended. This kid was looking at everything in a snow globe.
I remember that, actually. I remember watching something, and someone said that was the worst ending of any TV show in history.
Bobby Ewing's dream. When Bobby Ewing was dead, it was Pam's.
The end. In Dallas, that wasn't the end of the show. That was
the end of. By the way, they should have the way they should have ended Dallas. They should have Jerry Ewing wake up in bed with Barbara Eden in Cocoa Beach, and have Dr. Bellows come in and say, Major, you need to get ready for your shuttle flight. It's
that would have been great.
You've been thinking about that a while, Dwight.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've been thinking about it since I saw the Dallas finale, back in the day. What is he just shot like what do you call it, Joel Grey, or he was like some dancer. I guess he played the devil on the season finale of Dallas.
But Dwight, that's too. I agree. That would have been an awesome ending. But remember, that didn't happen until later with Newhart, right? That would have been years later. How they ended.
They would have done it first, though. They would have been first.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have thought about it. In retrespect, looking back.
Well, the whole Newhart thing was all about the Dallas season with the Dream.
And he ended up in bed with Suzanne Plachette.
Yeah. By the way, that Dream season was one of my favorite seasons of Dallas. You had that, what do you call it, the Chinese oil tycoonist of Marino Shipping. They blew up, they killed Sue Ellen in the finale, and they killed off, what's her name? Cindy Snow's cousin from Three's Company, who was on Dallas. I can't think of her name. Like on the show, she was Jamie Ewing, but I forget. Yeah, Cindy. She was Cindy. Cindy Snow, Chrissy's cousin.
All I know is that one of the greatest cliffhangers in history is who shot JR.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I remember that. Yeah, that was.
Who would have thought it would have been Christian that did that? Christine.
That was Bing Crosby's daughter, right?
Yeah.
But there was a hit song, because back then the season would end and you wait till the fall of the next season, and there was great anticipation. Remember, they had a hit song, "Who Shot JR," and
remember that was also back when Hollywood did 30 episodes a season, not 13. And we work so damn hard, give us more money.
Yeah, that's right.
There
are a lot of. I was young at the time, and there were certain things in that show that you couldn't get away with today, but not even close. But there were also things mentioned that my naive mind, I didn't understand what they were talking about. And this is how it merges with things you couldn't say. I mean, and I won't repeat it here, but they were saying things, that I didn't know what they meant, but you couldn't get away with today on television.
On Dallas or?
Yeah, on Dallas. Remember when he was referring, he used all kinds of slurs against Sue Ellen and their arguments and stuff, things you couldn't get away with today.
Well, she was a drunk. She was a damn drunk. That's why he locked her up in a sanitarium.
He kept calling her a slut all the time. He kept calling her a slut.
See, today
now you're canceled. Now you're canceled, Dave.
But I tell you though, I thought when you said that you can't, I thought you were talking about the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh yeah,
the show that which was everybody's. It was the number one show on television for.
I love that show. I love that show, especially Daisy Duke. especially for Daisy Duke.
Although I want to say Knight Rider did knock Dukes of Hazzard out of their first place run
Oh, did they?
for a year. Yeah, I mean CBS used to have and then you had the former Mrs. Reagan's show afterwards, Falcon Crest.
Yeah, Falcon
Garrett,
Crest.
are you aware of that show, Falcon Crest? The first Mrs. Reagan, Jane Wyman, was the star of that show.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
She
know.
ran a
a
winery.
vineyard in the Napa Valley.
Yes.
What was the
Yeah.
what was like the plot like?
I'm glad you asked. Basically,
This has nothing to do with what Don put on the list, for crying out loud.
Yeah, well, basically, this is basically Falcon Crest was a winery. You had Angela Channing, who was
Yeah, I've never heard of this. If it's about a winery, I've never heard of it.
no, it's actually you'd actually like it, Garrett, because it's a lot on the Dallas vein. Imagine if they turned Jerry Ewing into a woman.
Okay, so instead of
know.
an oil magnate, he's a wine star.
Yeah, and what happened is her brother died and left her son half of the winery, and she's trying to get him out of Falcon Crest,
Yeah.
and then
Is that
she's
actor
got
Ricardo Montalban's son?
was that who that was?
Whose son was he?
I don't know. Let's see. Let me see something. Hold on, we'll find out.
My favorite TV show till the end of time will always be The West Wing.
Really?
The Left Wing.
Yeah, no, it's an idealized liberal like administration, but it's still great writing, and I still do admire Jed Bartlett a bit.
The one who had more legitimacy than George. This is Falcon Crest, Garrett.
Oh God. Yeah, this is the same opening as Dallas. So you just change some of the buildings, and
Yeah. And by the way, you can buy Falcon Crest wine.
So are we about to get copyright stricken for this?
Yeah.
Jane Wyman.
That's just think if she had stayed. That's the Robert Foxworth. That was not Ricardo Montalban's son.
Oh, that's what it was. Fernando.
Montalban's son was
I do know Fantasy Island. I know that one.
Okay, that's enough of that.
And you remember Dynasty? Remember Dynasty at that era?
I did not like.
Dynasty.
I did. Yes. I did not like Dynasty.
You know who was very pretty? And I saw her last night in an old Mannix episode, and she was on Dynasty. Linda Evans.
She was also in the Big Valley.
In John Hythe.
She was Audrey Barkley on the Big Valley.
The
She's
most
very
famous
pretty.
scene that, or at least I can remember from Dynasty, is Joan Collins and Linda Evans fighting in the mud.
Oh wow!
Something
they won't let you do today.
Yeah. The only thing I remember from like the biggest thing whenever anyone mentions Dynasty, I always think of a Family Guy episode, and then there were fewer when Brian and Stewie are playing a game of what's it called, theme songs to TV shows, and Stewie is doing Dynasty, and Brian can't figure it out for the life of him. It's funny.
But Garrett, if you ever get a chance, you should watch Big Valley. It was basically the original.
I know
Dallas.
Big Valley. I do know.
Big Valley, really?
Yes.
With
the
the $6 million man.
Yeah, I know. What's it called? The $6 Million Man. I watched. Oh God, what was it? Lost in Space. I watched a lot of Lost in Space.
Yeah.
I never really got into Lost in Space.
Yeah, I'm
also,
not a big
I love
sci-fi guy.
Time Tunnel. That
Time Tunnel was good.
awesome. Time Tunnel was awesome.
Do you remember that episode where he predicts a total eclipse and they think he's a god?
Yeah. I liked the Gettysburg episode of Time Tunnel. I liked that one a lot. But I liked also. I'm a huge Doctor Who nut, so I love Doctor.
You know. By the way, the Deltex or Deltoids, the villains.
Daleks.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
You put a staircase in front of them, they're done. They can't go upstairs.
They have levitating.
No, they did not in the early seasons. They did.
They're not in the early seasons. In the modern ones, they do.
So
But
they
anyway.
they overcame their adversity to stairs.
Yeah. Well, in other news, how do we think how do we think about Oh, and we need to bring back the Waltons. Oh yes,
Well, that was a great show. That was a good one.
It's up
Family
against
Matters
Chips.
was good too. I liked Family Matters.
Family Matters. Was that the Oracle show?
No, that was what's it
That was
called?
Family Matters. Was Oracle?
No, right?
You're thinking of Buffy and Jody, right? Family Affair, maybe.
I remember
wait.
Family Affair.
Okay.
What was the one?
someone
What
tell
was the
us.
one with Michael J. Fox?
Family
Family
Ties.
Ties.
Family Ties. Thank
Family
you.
Ties, yeah.
Thank you.
But anyways, we've got other stuff that's happening. So we took a great road trip down memory lane here. Without great classic television, which you'll never find any of it anymore today. But there's other stuff that is going on in the world of politics this week. So Garrett, tell us something we probably missed or overlooked.
I mean, I was interested in talking about a third party run with no labels.
Yeah.
Have you all been paying attention to that?
Yeah, but before your time, there was an organization called Leader Lead in 1992. And they were like, they were like the same no labels kind of crowd. They didn't like Bill Clinton. They didn't like George H.W.
Was
Bush.
that the group that got Ross Perot?
No, that's the group that had Warren Rudman of Graham Rudman fame.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Tsongas had that organization.
Okay.
They were trying to get a Tsongas Rudman ticket for 92.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but basically they folded like 6 months after the 92 elections. They were deficit hawks. They go, our generations, we're never gonna have Social Security for our generation. We're never gonna have this, we're never gonna have that. And that's how I view no labels as, frankly. Tom Davis is part of that whole thing, no labels,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my question is if No Labels does decide to do a third party run, what is the ticket?
Probably
is it going to be? Would it be Manchin Hogan or Hogan Manchin, or would it even be? I mean, Joe Lieberman's putting his weight.
No, really?
Yes.
Really, Joe Lieberman. Wow.
Back from 2000.
Yeah, Joe Lieberman. He addressed the Republican convention in 2008.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a crazy situation.
And then they ran him out of the Democrat Party. But
McCain is his best friend.
I mean, knowing our fair Governor Hogan, he probably wouldn't be at the top of it. This would be like a Hogan Mansion ticket, I think.
I think Hogan would be the presidential.
Yeah, it'd be Hogan Mansion, or it could be Tom Davis and Joe Lieberman. Or it could be what's her name? Barbara Comstock's part of this group too, I believe. No labels.
Yeah, it's I think, but okay. So if no labels moves forward and it's a Hogan Mansion ticket, who do you think it hurts more, Democrats, or do you think it hurts Republicans?
I think it hurts Republicans because the Hogan voters will not. They'll go out, Hogan, we may, we're in Maryland and, Hogan did nothing to build the Republican Party up while he was governor in 8 years, but he was very popular amongst Democrats. The middle of the road Democrats. I mean, you had Montgomery County Democrats hated Larry Hogan because he had an R next to his name. And I think he would actually be formidable in some of the swing states like Pennsylvania. I think he would be. We all.
I think just sort of the opposite. I think it would hurt usually it hurts the incumbent, especially when the incumbent's so unpopular. And then a Manchin or Hogan, you'd probably have enough.
That is true. A lot of those Hogan Republicans, Hogan Democrats, probably would vote for Sleepy Joe Biden.
I think it takes a reasonable chunk out of both parties. Yeah. Honestly,
I think it hurts us more than it would hurt a
Democrat. If you're gonna bring Hogan into the mix, you got to step out of the state of Maryland because we have our bias since he's been. We know Hogan, but the rest of the country doesn't know him the way Maryland.
Yeah, and he was the most popular governor in the country. He beat out Charlie Baker. Charlie Baker could be a Hogan Baker ticket. Actually, that would actually be more interesting than even a
but
Hogan.
nobody really knows them. I mean, it'd be tough for
And
I'm a political
yeah,
junkie, and I barely remember Jerry Baker, whatever his first name, Charlie Baker.
he was the
But here's the
governor of
thing. Here's the
Massachusetts.
thing, though, David. Remember, who knew who Bill Clinton was in 1992? He was not the Democrats' heir apparent in 1992.
Yeah, but Joe Manchin would be known. So if Joe Manchin seems to would be strong.
Would he
now.
be known?
I mean, he's
okay,
the most powerful senator right now in office.
Here's my question to you guys: Is how would Joe Manchin and Larry Hogan play in Peoria? We're political junkies. We know these people. We know people that people have forgotten. But how would he play in Peoria? How would he play in Idaho?
It would be very. I think it would be bad. So in all of the states that lean heavy for each party, they would have absolutely no chance. Like a Hogan and Manchin ticket would have no success in the Deep South. They would have no success in the Northeast.
What are you calling the Deep South,
California? Huh?
What are you calling the Deep South? Because I think
Mississippi, Alabama.
Okay.
They would have no success in
Because I
Florida.
know North Carolina, Virginia, Hogan.
North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, they would have some hope. But this is my idea is that a Hogan Manchin ticket would probably take around 20% of Republicans because about 20% of Republicans are never Trump Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
If Trump is the nominee, this is if the calculus. If Trump is the nominee for Republicans,
and right now it looks like he is going to be
Democrats.
And if you believe polls,
and
then again.
And for Democrats, I think you would be taking around 25 to maybe even 30% of Democrats, because the Republicans have a far more fervent love and affection for Trump. I mean, speaking about the average Republican, than a Democrat has love and affection for Joe Biden. Okay, Biden was a compromise candidate against Trump. Trump is a populist candidate that was able to mobilize the base of the Republican Party. So I think that there's less love for Biden within the Democratic Party, and more people would be honestly willing to probably switch to a no labels ticket if they were given the opportunity.
Hey, Garrett, this is a little campaign technology before your time, but it was the morphing effect. In 1994, actually in 88 we did that too, but in 94, 92, more so in 94, we morphed every Republican running for Congress and Senate into Bill Clinton. Imagine if we morphed Joe Biden into Spiro Agnew. Sadly, nobody remembers Spiro Agnew. But I mean, this is a guy that what is it? If you read on Montgomery County Republican Club, Gary Bays has an article, and Gary was actually one of the prosecutors that was going after Spiro Agnew because he was in the Nixon DOJ, and he was one of the victims of the Saturday Night Massacre.
Oh, I didn't know that about Gary. I know Gary, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's how Gary ended up number 2 at EPA under Bill Ruckel's house.
Okay.
But Gary, and basically the bribe was around $5,000 is what Spiro Agnew got. And they ran him out of town. And you know something? The Democrats still whine to this day. But if even some of the allegations are true, like the $5 million payout from the Chicoms, I don't know. You can use any math you want. $5,000 does not adjust to $5 million for inflation in 2023, frankly. And where do we get justice for Spiro now? Justice for Spiro,
I think any historical realignment on the favor of Spiro Agnew will take a long time to do.
I know. And you know why? Because the media smeared him to the point where, even President Nixon, he's another one of their, President Nixon was one of the most hated Republicans until Donald Trump came around. They hated Richard Nixon, and something? They turned into Nixon. When they falsified those documents about President Bush's Air National Guard records at CBS. That is very Nixonian of people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how history.
But Nixon's had somewhat of a rehabilitation. I saw an ad the other day.
I've seen to it.
Well, I'll give you an example. There was a column the other day where Nixon had talked about Putin. He almost predicted the rise of Putin. And anyway, it was on one of the major mainstream papers that would have hated Nixon. But they it was a nice little piece, but it sort of gave him credit for And he even had a clip of him or his words basically predicting a future Putin.
A non-communist Russia will still have imperialist tendencies. That was his.
Yeah.
That was what he was talking about, and he said that what needs to happen is we need to welcome them into the West, and that was one of our problems. We should have done a better job to try.
We did a great job welcoming Poland, Hungary, the Czech
we didn't
Republic.
do it with Russia.
We did. We should have done that with Russia. We should have propped up Putin. Putin should have been our Augusto Pinochet in Russia. For crying out loud.
Yeah. I've held that. Probably, I think I love H.W. Bush, but I think H.W. Bush's greatest mistake was his failure to rehabilitate Russia into a Western world order.
Yeah, I mean, we did a great job working with the other Eastern European countries, We should have done, we done that with the Baltic nations, the former Soviet republics of the Baltics, Lithuania, Latvia, Lithuania. We did a great job with them. We did, we should have done that with Ukraine too, frankly. If we had established a presence in Ukraine, like a forward base in Kiev, this would not have happened today.
No, they never would have invaded if we had U.S. troops stationed in Ukraine.
I mean, that's why why do you think the Russians never invaded West Berlin? They tried their best. They did the blockade, and we said, fine, blockade all you want, we'll go over you.
The Berlin airlift, it was one of the greatest humanitarian efforts.
Yes. Although Joe Biden will say his Afghan
evacuation was the greatest. Yeah,
that was the greatest air operation in American history. I don't think anybody died during the Berlin airlift. Garrett, did anybody die?
That I'm not certain about. I don't
think anybody. No.
No.
Actually, it's zero. Nobody died during the Berlin airlift.
We were having an airplane take off and enter Berlin airspace every 30 seconds. It was insane.
Yep. We supplied them with food, sugar, and that is the power of American hegemony, frankly. I know a lot of people don't like nation builders, but if we're not going to build nations, I know people say Belt and Road is not really nation building, but in essence, it is. The Chinese belt. What do you think the Chinese are doing around the world? Building they're entering into contracts with these countries, building roads and so on.
We've just done a terrible job of nation building after the 50s. We did a phenomenal job in the 40s and the 50s, rebuilding South Korea, Japan, Western Germany, Western Europe in general. We did a phenomenal job. And then right when it got to the 60s and onwards, we failed at it. It was a terrible. And I think largely it was because the American political class, I think, lacked the will to spend money on those projects, because I think they were like, okay, the Marshall Plan was terribly expensive, but what did it do? It created and it armed our greatest allies for decades to come.
And if we did not do the Marshall Plan, I'm almost pretty confident the Greeks and the Italians definitely would have gone communist, possibly 100%. Even the French.
100%.
Would have gone communist. It was the fact that American money and American presence in Western Europe is what kept. Eisenhower contingency plan to invade France if the French communists won the election. I would say it was 54, 56 French elections. And there are no great leaders. There's no more Churchills. Or Eisenhower's or Nixon's or Reagan's or Bush's, frankly, to restore order. I mean, I'll be blunt. Joe Biden, what he should have done when Russia invaded Ukraine is put together a coalition of the willing, like President George H.W. Bush did and President George W. Bush did against Iraq. He should have mobilized. I mean, he had a timid, weak response.
I think I would be very cautious about entering into a conventional war against Russia now.
I'm not saying we don't need to do any of that stuff. All we need to do is just give them guns.
Okay. But by coalition of the willing, I thought you were talking about Western intervention, like full-blown intervention.
We could have redone Lend-Lease for the Ukrainians. Bring back Lend-Lease. Great policy.
I do think we've actually have restarted Lend-Lease a small amount, not to the extent we did.
Unfortunately, the Ukrainians don't have bases in stuff. They don't have islands and bases they can give us for destroyers.
Yeah.
Remember that?
bases for destroyers.
I mean, I think we got the better end of the deal. We got a bunch of bases in the Bahamas and stuff like that, and they got a bunch of World War I class destroyers.
Speaking of destroyers,
Mhm.
this is the Washington Times. This is the destroyer USS Chung Hoon from that front page of June 3rd, I think it was. That was my son's ship. My son's
nice.
commander. And that was a ship in the Strait of Taiwan that went up against the Chinese back then in late May, early June. So what we have happen in the Aleutians a couple days ago, we had the Chinese and the Russians doing maneuvers. Was that saber rattling? Was it provocative? Did they see what they wanted to see as a U.S. response? I don't think the U.S. is going to respond in a real action the way, the U.S. responded the other day.
No, I don't think so. I will say that it was very interesting to see China blew up a bit on Russia after their maneuver. They got very angry with Russia refusing to continue negotiations about Ukraine because China is getting very angry about Russia. As Russia continues its war in Ukraine, all that's doing is actually building up Western resolve against Russia, and it is building a resolve that if China attacks Taiwan, the West is more willing to go to war to defend Taiwan. And so China wants to finish and fix this issue in Ukraine. And Russia's refusal to do so had the Chinese ambassador involved in the peace talks.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, publicly state that they were dissatisfied with Russia's actions during the peace talks. And that they were willing to accept the 10-point plan put forward by Ukraine, which was saying that Russia has to leave every province of Ukraine, Crimea and the Donbass.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's basically a failure of leadership. I mean, this is what happens when there's a weak America in the world, Garrett. A weak America makes for a very unstable world.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, I think you and I had this conversation a few weeks ago about if we did not have the Great White Fleet of Teddy Roosevelt's vision, what would the high seas be like, Garrett? If we weren't there to patrol the seas, what would happen? Those pirates would be ruling the day, raiding neutral shipping and so on.
Not just pirates. I mean, other nations.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, North Korea would probably be emboldened to North Korea, Iran. I mean, the news article came out. I believe it was last week that the United States military and I think this is actually a good plan of station United States Marines on merchant vessels going around Iran to deter Iran from taking shipping vessels.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett, back in the days, we reflagged Kuwaiti oil tankers and escorted them through the straits to prevent Iranian attacking of neutral shipping, frankly, keeping the flow of oil going.
Yeah. American hegemony has been a net benefit to the world, and if anyone says so, they're wrong. They are wrong.
Yeah, yeah. All these people.
I'll take this opportunity to brag on my son again.
Sure.
He's a surface warfare officer. So back in 2018-19, he was in command of 70 sailors in fast boats at the Strait of Hormuz. We had no issues during the time that he was in command of the 70 sailors. Coincidence? But my son also, well, other people tell me, not just, I don't want to lay all this on my son. There are weapons that we have that no one has an idea of what they can do if used in earnest.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got what do you call these drone shuttles? I was reading about this. Is that where they are space based and they just come out of the air, and drop their payloads, and they're done. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about that sparkle and stuff like that. Did we know? I mean, the Patriot missiles is a spin-off of SDI, and honestly, if SDI was implemented, we'd have the
There's been
Chinese would not.
discussions about bringing it back. If you've seen in the news recently,
Yeah, I
they've been
know.
talking
It's
about
funny.
bringing it back.
Yeah, I hope our side is in favor of bringing SDI back. Because seems like of late, our side is well. If Biden's for, we can't be for it. And Biden is for stuff because we're against it. Frankly, it's like all these people say, "Oh, you're adopting Joe Biden's pro-Ukraine policies." No, Joe Biden is only pro-Ukraine because Republicans are against. Many Republicans are publicly against defending Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it seems very simplistic, but Joe Biden is a very simple man.
So who's the puppet master?
Probably
Obama.
Yeah, Obama. Yeah,
Obama.
Valerie Jared.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I go on YouTube, I'm getting constantly the Act Blue ads from Obama saying to donate now, and it just amazes me that they recognize that Biden is unpopular and they're going to use Obama to try to get every dollar that they can.
I think the funniest political cartoon I saw in 2020 was, big letters, vote for Barack Obama's vice president, and then little letters, Joe Biden. Yeah, that was one of the funniest cartoons I saw in that cycle. And we've got what do you call? It's like I think Democrats kind of feel like. Remember how we felt when John McCain was our nominee in 2008? We didn't get Steve Forbes, nor did we get Mitt Romney. We got John McCain, Mr. Keating 5, and campaign finance reform. I think the Democrats are kind of in that same feeling right now as we were back then.
But they have the benefit of incumbency.
Yes, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And but I think 50% of Democrats want someone else. 50% of Democrats say they want someone else.
See, that's the double-edged sword with incumbency, because on one hand, it's great for the incumbent, of course, obviously, but you can't really get rid of him unless he wants to step down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've got what do you call? We've got a whole bunch of stuff. You've got Biden. Biden is trying. I mean, we all live I think with the exception of Garrett and Rich, we live all inside the Capital Beltway.
I work in the Capital Beltway.
I spent enough time there growing up. I know.
Exactly.
I worked in D.C.
So, but you guys live far. You live outside the Beltway, and Garrett, you live inside. You live outside the other Beltway. Tell me, is Bidenomics really working as well? I mean, when you go to, say, the Walmart at the Golden Ring Mall, or the Panera, or if you go to Johansson's in Westminster, are you feeling the excitement? I mean, are people really excited about Bidenomics? I don't see it here.
No.
I don't see the excitement.
I studied economics, and that was my major in undergrad. I studied economics and political science. I got concurrent degrees in both. And one of the biggest things about capitalism is that 50% of it is public mood. and so the thing is like right now, we have been seeing that inflation it's still high, but it has been reducing. Mm-hmm. We see that unemployment has been lowering, but we have still been seeing the mood of the public is terrified of what's happening. Oil prices are still generally pretty high, and the stock market, which is probably one of the best indicators of market preferences right now, is oscillating incredibly. And so we're not seeing a lot of confidence in Bidenomics. And if you don't have confidence in an economic plan, it's not working. You need
that expression. It's the economy stupid. It doesn't have the same meaning it did 12 years ago.
Yeah. Are we in a malaise? Is the country headed? Are we kind of in a malaise right now? The way
Jimmy Carter said.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter is
Yeah.
great malaise. I think.
I think we've gotten into a period of indifference,
Mhm.
malaise, indifference. What do you want to call it?
I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to be entering into a period of stagflation like we saw within the 70s or anything like that. But there is a general fear, and I do think that that is an indication of something that is to come. Whether it is an actual, a market massive readjustment, like we had in 2008, where we'll be seeing a lot of sell-offs coming shortly. I can't fully tell because that's the one bad thing about economics is it's near impossible to get it right. I mean, if you know anything about the stock market crash of 2008, only a handful of people adequately predicted it, and the best economic analysis at the time said that it was fine. So it's really hard right now to know where we're heading. But right now, I think the biggest indicators are showing that we aren't heading in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a scary time because of the reasons you just mentioned, and the partisanship is so great. I mean, the stalemates are so great. And you got real problems, and the thing with Biden is, I'm sure I disagree with him on policy, but you're going to need a president, whether he's Democrat or Republican, it seems to me, that's competent, that's mentally with it, that has energy, that has ideas. Even if the ideas may be wrong, at least they're pushing something. I just finished a book by Russ Daltott, who's kind of the in-house conservative for the New York Times, and it's called The Decadent Society. And I won't give you any more spiel about the book, except he just feels that we haven't really had the progress or the growth, the innovation that we had in previous decades. We haven't really gone as far. So it's an interesting little book, but it's The Decadent Society, and he mentions a whole different. He does use the word malaise. Actually, the word malaise does come up. So
Yeah. I do think though that in addition to like all these problems that we are having at home of uncertainty, I do think all the foreign policy issues are also compounding that. I do think that the American public is afraid and concerned about both war in Taiwan and also war in Ukraine, about either of those situations exploding. And if war happens in Taiwan, then we have semiconductors that we will, be lack of availability for our own technology industry or computing and everything like that. That would be one of the worst
Where
crashes.
will we get our EV batteries from, Garrett? At that point,
Oh,
all
God,
the
I have
EVs
no
that
idea.
Joe Biden wants us all to buy EVs.
Yeah, and we don't have the damn infrastructure to power them all on at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, and also during the heat waves, the charges don't work as well during the heat wave.
No.
I just counted the number of stars on the flag behind Garrett. Now I know why you referred to it as your patent flag.
Yes, 48. Yes.
okay.
Yes. Hawaii
That
and
was
Alaska
before.
were not yet added. Well, this is actually from the movie. What's it called? That's the 1976 patent movie.
Okay.
Huh?
With George C. Scott.
No, was that 76? It was before that because Richard Nixon was very impressed by that movie. So it was
Oh,
before
then it was probably like 72, maybe
Yeah.
73.
because they were saying Nixon's whole Vietnam complex came from after he watched Patton. That's when he
It's a
decided.
great movie. It's a great movie.
He goes after the liberals will say after he watched the movie. That's when he decided to start expanding bombings in
Cambodia.
I heard that. Yeah.
And but I remember when President Bush was president, we were having we liberated Iraq. And he's like Nixon. He's a warmonger. I'm like, I go, he is not like Nixon until we started bombing Iran or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But we are coming to a close, so to speak. We're at the segment I like to call Final Thoughts, plural, where we go around and just say more than one thing's final thoughts about anything you want to talk about, And let's start with you, David Shepard. Final thoughts.
Well, I'm battling poison ivy still, so it's not fun.
Oh, still?
Yeah, I guess I keep making it worse. Well, I'm hoping that the summer will start cooling off here, and I am, Dwight, thinking of you when I look at the standings, seeing the Orioles doing so well. So even though I'm in Virginia, I will still. It'd be nice to see the Orioles make a comeback because it's been since I was a kid.
1983.
Yeah,
1983.
yeah, so it's been a while. And just doing well on my book front, selling my book and having fun doing that. I was in Norfolk over the weekend and it went well. I did a podcast earlier. I don't know. I guess that'll turn out well. He just asked me a bunch of questions and then the time went by so fast. I guess he'll splice things together. So I don't know. I guess I did well on that. But
Who was the podcast with?
so the guy in Goochland, Virginia, is a Tea Party guy.
Okay, nice.
He's got his own podcast. I don't know that much about it, but he asked, "Hey, would you like to?" He bought my book and said, "Hey, would you like to do a podcast?" I said, "Of course." So
Yeah.
But anyway, going okay, and it's always good being on. I don't have the patent flag behind me, but I got my Gipper bust. So, but anyway,
And your Washington bust as well.
yeah, I got the Washington bust over there as well. So. But anyway, yeah, doing well. So I'm happy to be on. That's my final thought.
Sure. Rich, final thoughts?
And back with me are the tall ships. Do you remember when the tall ships came up the Chesapeake Bay into Baltimore? That had to have been in what, late
Bicentennial.
70s?
Bicentennial,
Bicentennial. Yep.
76.
So that's what's on my wall. So one of the topics that we haven't covered had to do with David Weiss, who is a U.S. attorney for Delaware, who has been named as a special prosecutor.
But he needs his own special prosecutor to look into.
He actually goes to Garrett and he says, "Hey, I've gotten so far on this case, I think you need to let me be the special prosecutor. Am I going to resign from my federal position like the law calls for? No." So, what the heck's going on? And he's the one that made the sweetheart deal for Hunter Biden that the judge went, I don't think this is going to fly. Anyway, I thought I would bring that topic up since it was.
Any other thoughts, Rich? Any other thoughts? Any things coming up in Carroll County?
Well, in Carroll County, what I try to do is focus on our local politics. When people say, I don't want to register to be Republican, I'm thinking you're missing the boat here. Because if you're going to have an impact on Carroll County politics, you got to be voting in the primary. Because the people that win in the primaries are Republican candidates. So you're just throwing it up. And so that's really the message I'm going to be trying to get out in the coming weeks and months, as well as how we're going to go about getting people to vote without actually showing up on Election Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've written a couple of articles on ballot harvesting, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. I also had this thought earlier today on that. I got my sales training from IBM back in the 70s. I would really like to see training classes the way I received my training, because it's a sales job. When you go out there talking to people on their doorstep, you got to be conducting a sales talk, and you got to know what you're doing. And that's what I want to see coming down the pike in the next couple of weeks and months.
Cool. Final thoughts, Garrett Zahner.
It's always a pleasure to be on, even though I haven't been able to when previously because I was away at law school, got very, very busy. But
law school busy? Say it ain't so, Garrett.
yeah. But it's always a pleasure to be on. I guess the only thing, because me and Rich were talking about it in anticipation for this, the way that we're going to save the American Social Security system is through a sovereign wealth fund. And that's what we need to do. We need to do exactly what the Saudis do, and we should make a sovereign wealth fund. And with that, that's my final thoughts.
That's a great idea. And
I like that thought.
I got a couple of thoughts. One is that tick tock, time is winding down to one. The summer is ending, but even more so, the early bird specials for the salute to Governor Bob Ehrlich ends in 4 days and 57 seconds.
I should now be able to come now because I now have my job now. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's great, and I would love to host you at my table, or I might even buy the CRs a table.
That would be great.
And it's one of those great things,
To honor a great Republican governor.
Yes, and he did so much to build the Republican Party, frankly.
Not only
You
a
know.
great governor, a great Republican congressman as well.
Yes.
He was one of, and this is something that I give Bob Ehrlich a great deal of credit for. He is one of the very few congressmen during the Republican Revolution in the 90s that stood by the pledge of term limits. Okay. I don't personally believe in term limits, but
I don't either, actually, Garrett.
but his dedication to the principle and standing down when four terms was up, that was good on him, and I respect him a lot for following through, because a lot of them didn't. A lot of them just kept on going.
Very true. Very true. Now, so you see, it's now you got 3 hours. I mean, I'm sorry, 3 days, 23
3
hours,
hours.
59.
I have to get dressed.
Hey, I don't react well to pressure like that, Dwight.
No, this is for the early bird rate, So
I know.
and early bird rates are great. You can get a table for $900, a sponsorship for $1,000. Get on the host committee. You can buy a ticket for $100. You can buy a VIP ticket for $200. And Thursday they all go up $50. So if you want to save a few bucks, I'd say buy your ticket over the weekend. And I'd say buy one for a friend if you can. This is going to be the event of the year, I think. And Governor Ehrlich, we're working on a bunch of fun stuff, So now, Garrett, you can serve on the Ehrlich Salute Committee too now. Huh.
I can tell you that I will be there with 9 of my closest friends from Carroll County.
Good. What's his name? Who's your state's attorney?
Oh, Haven Shoemaker.
Yeah, he bought a
Great
ticket.
state's attorney.
Yeah. He went to the same law school as David Weiss up at Weidner in Delaware.
All
A little
right.
bit of trivia.
Oh,
I do wonder if in a decade we're going to have a salute to Hogan.
Well, actually, next year's going to be 10 years since he ran for governor. So
Oh God, yeah.
next year's going to be 10 years, As they say, as the jokes go. Is it too soon? And the other thing is we lost a dear friend to Republicans far and near. Our friend Katja Bullock passed away, and tomorrow's going to be her funeral at Holy Redeemer. A lot of us will be there.
In Kensington.
Yeah, Kensington, Maryland, yes. And our friend Katja, I mean, she just was a stalwart. She was part of every Republican administration since Reagan, Bush. Bill Clinton begged her to stay on. Then she did 2 terms with President Bush 43, and she retired with Donald Trump's administration, President Trump's administration. And beyond the whole politics, Katja, when she hosted, she would open up her penthouse for fundraisers for anyone that would ask. Her deal was always, honey, I will make the venue and food available. You have to make the phone calls. I'm not calling anyone. And we did. We had a fundraiser with Kelly Schultz there, Barry Glass, myself. She did 3. I think she did 2 fundraisers last cycle for me. One with Ellen Sauerbrey and one with Governor and First Lady Kendall Ehrlich. And beyond that, she also did other stuff. One of the things is the Christmas party was very near and dear to her that we did. It was all to benefit the Toys for Tots. Over 1 year, our former finance chair of Montgomery County and we were thinking, hey, what if we did a tiered system where we have a VIP down in Katja's penthouse where people would pay $100 and would see the guest. And Katja was like, honey, you don't fundraise off of Christmas. It's about the children. And that is Katja to a T. And we're all going to miss Katja Bullock. And with that, that's my final thoughts. For everyone else, good night, everyone. And we'll see everyone next week.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Hold on. We're not
Bye.
clear. Hold on.